Today, we are going to be talking about my picks for the top 5 best cards from March of the Machine for Pioneer and Explorer. Let's not waste any time. Let's jump into this one. I do want to talk about a couple of honorable mentions. Yes, the top list that has honorable mention. It's a tale as old as time. On screen, we have Dredju and Hazoret. This is a 5 mana, 2 red, 1 for a legendary creature, human god, as long as you control 1 or fewer cards in hand. Dredju and Hazoret has Vigilant and Haste. Whenever it attacks, look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may exile a legendary creature card from among them. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Until the end of turn, you may cast the exile card without paying its mana cost, and it's a 5/4. Holy smokes. This card is pretty sick. I think you can go get Atraxa off this. 6 cards is pretty deep, too. This could potentially spawn a brand new archetype, so I'm really excited to see where this breaks down. The reason it's not cracking my top 5 list is because there's just not a home for it yet. We don't have a deck that necessarily wants to do this. Of course, you could Neoform into it and then have it do the thing with Atraxa, but then at that point, why aren't we just playing Atraxa? Anyways, I'm super stoked for this card. This looks awesome. Dredju and Hazoret, Boros Beater. Super stoked for this one. Let's see if it actually finds a place in Pioneer. Next up, another honorable mention. We have Rona, Herald of Invasion for just a colorless and a blue. A human wizard. Whenever you cast a legendary spell, untap it, and you get to tap and it loots. So draw a card, discard a card. You can transform it, and then the backside's just absolutely nutty. You can check that out. It's insane. But we're going to talk about the front side here for a second, just because this is the reason I'm picking this card as an honorable mention. And I want to see this played in Jeskai Ascendancy. Now, that deck, I've played on the channel before. You guys can check that video out right up there. But I think this gives that deck even more legs because, holy smokes, being able to loot every single time you play a Mox Amber, and a lot of those cards in that deck are legendary. So I'm super stoked to see this. And if for you historic fans that play Kethis, which is a pet deck of mine that I just won't let go for any reason because I love that card, Kethis the Hidden Hand. This card does go in that deck as well, and that deck is very good in historic. So Rona, Herald of Invasion. This card's going to be so sick in Pioneer. Let's move on to the actual top 5. First up, we have Change the Equation. Locking it in at number 5. Yes, Change the Equation is a 2 mana, 1 and a blue instant. Choose one. Counter target spell with mana value 2 or less, or counter target red or green spell with mana value 6 or less. It is time, finally, for those pesky mono green decks to be gone. This is going to be an excellent card for Azorius Control. Of course, my favorite archetype in the format. I'm super stoked. The fact that it trades evenly with other 2 mana spells, it doesn't matter despite whatever color it is also good. I think this card could be main deckable in Azorius Control. And the fact that it counters target red or green. This is a great hate card for blue. I'm super stoked for this. This thing counters so many, basically everything of relevance from mono green. I'm super stoked. It also helps against the vehicles deck, and it counters almost everything in that deck as well. It counters the boat, the main boat, the Kitty Cat Parade. It also, from mono green, counters Old Growth Troll, another card that's going to be on this list in a bit. I'll get to that, though. And it, of course, counters Cavalier Thorns and Storm the Festivities, or whatever the name of that card is. You know what I'm talking about. But Change the Equation is certainly going to do that. It's going to change the equation and hopefully give Azorius Control a couple extra percentage points in those matchups of mono green and, of course, Gruul boats. Moving on to number 4 on my list, Knight-Errant of Eos. So this has Convoke. It is a 4/4. When it enters the battlefield, look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal up to 2 creature cards with mana value X or less from among them, where X is the number of creatures you convoked. Put the reveal cards into your hand, then shuffle. This is another way to kind of get a little bit more late game potential with your mono white humans deck. I'm super stoked. This is a human knight. So, and it's a big body, 5 mana. So basically, you can convoke this thing for 5 even and grab another one, which would be crazy. But it's going to let you find your Brutal Cathars. It's going to let you find everything you need. Knight-Errant of Eos, I'm super stoked for. It's a deck that I've played in the past. I really like the mono white humans deck, even though I have terrible luck when I play that deck. If you've watched any of the streams that I've done or any of the YouTube videos that I've made playing that deck, just terrible luck. One time my computer crashed while I was streaming it. It was just not fun. But it is a very good deck, and I'm super stoked. This is going to give it reach against control decks and against mid-range decks that otherwise this deck just really doesn't have. So Knight-Errant of Eos, super stoked for mono white humans. Let's move on to number 3, Invasion of Ikoria. So this is X green with 6 defense counters. Battle Siege. When it enters the battlefield, search your library and or graveyard for a non-human creature card with mana value X or less. Put it into the battlefield. If you search your library this way, shuffle. Obviously, this card is built for mono green devotion. Now, this is going to be awesome, I think, in Elves as well. If you like that deck, green-black, we played that on the channel as well. You can check that video out. But this is going to be awesome. I am not a mono green player. I'll probably never play that deck. But, man, did they get a lot of support from this set. And 6 defense, definitely doable. Definitely they can knock this thing down. Let's flip it and see what it flips into. Zil'Othra, Apex of Ikoria. It has reach, which is relevant in mono green because a lot of their creatures, that's like the one thing they're kind of soft to is creatures with flying. But it also has for each non-human creature you control, you may have that creature assign its combat damage as though it weren't blocked. And it's a freaking 8/8. This thing's huge on the backside. But even evaluating this at face value, literally face value, this is going to be great. They're going to be able to go find either their Cityscape Leveler, if they're playing, if their opponent has something that, is giving them trouble, or their Cavalier of Thorns, or whatever the case may be. They can find it with Invasion of Ikoria. This card is very strong, in my opinion, and earns the number 3 spot. Next up, we stick with the same deck because it's Polukranos Reborn. This is GGG for a legendary creature Hydra, and it's a 4/5 with reach. Okay, that's not very good. Why is this card on the list? Well, first off, I do think even GGG, that is the same mana as Old Growth Troll. I do think that this is going to be able to take Old Growth's spot, potentially. But for 6 mana, which is super easy when you have Nykthos on the battlefield making 14 mana or whatever the heck. But you can transform it, and it turns into Polukranos, Engine of Ruin. This is a green and white legendary Phyrexian Hydra, 6/6. It has reach and lifelink. And when it dies, it's basically build your own Wormcoil machine because it creates a 3/3 green and white Phyrexian Hydra token with reach and a 3/3 green and white Phyrexian Hydra with lifelink. So no death touch, but again, the reach is actually very, very relevant in this deck. And again, as I said, activating, paying 6 mana and 2 life, not very hard to do in this deck. So I think Polukranos Reborn could be extremely good. The only like downside this thing has is that it is legendary. So you can't stack these on top of each other because that would be insane on this backside. But looking forward to losing to this card a lot. Polukranos Reborn / Polukranos Engine of Ruin is my number 2 pick. Let's move on to the number 1 pick, which is Invasion of Gobakhan. Now this here is a Magic the Gathering card. For 2 mana, you get a Battle Siege with only 3 defense counters. When it enters the battlefield, look at target opponent's hand. You may exile a non-land card from it for as long as that card remains exiled. Its owner can play it. It costs 2 more. So what is this doing? It is basically a Thoughtseize style effect for white. They don't get many of these abilities. This is certainly very, very cheap. But wait, there's more. Face value again, this card is very good. I think this is a piece of technology that any mono white aggro deck could use, but specifically, this is going to be seeing play in mono white humans, which again, if you could tell, all the cards that I'm mentioning here are slotting into decks that are already established cornerstones of the format. Moving on to the backside, Light Shield Array. At the beginning of your end step, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature that attacked this turn. So basically the way that works is this thing only costs 3 to flip. You only need to deal this thing 3 points of damage, but it is kind of an anthem for every creature. In mono white humans, you're attacking with everything every turn. So this is, you're putting tons of +1/+1 counters on your creatures with Light Shield Array. But wait, there's more. Sacrifice it. Creatures you control gain hexproof and indestructible until the end of turn. So the front side, you can snipe one of their removal spells or one of their wraths from their hand. And then on the back side, you get to protect. So you put them off for 2 turns. And then when they finally do have the mana, so talking about Supreme Verdict, for example, say they cast Supreme Verdict for 6 mana, sacrifice this bad boy, give all your creatures indestructible until the end of turn. Bing, bang, boom, hamburger time for your opponent. And gain hexproof, which means it works against spot removal. It works against planeswalkers. This card is so good, and it is my number 1 pick for best card for Pioneer and Explorer from March of the Machine. That's the list, everybody. I hope you did enjoy it. What are your picks for the best cards for Pioneer and Explorer from the brand new set, March of the Machine? Chop it up with me in the comments. If you want to hit me up on Twitter, I'm over there at LessAlex. Check out the Discord. We've got an awesome community over there. And if you want to support the content directly, head on over to patreon.com/LessAlex and check that out. Give me some $1 so I can keep making awesome content like this. If you've made it this far, of course, subscribe. Hit that like button. You know all the things. Hit the bell and all that stuff. And yeah, until next time, I appreciate you. Have a great day. And I will catch you all on the flippy flop. Adios.